Hey y'all, happy Sunday to you. Guess it would work better if I moved the microphone over in front of me so that you could, hear me and stuff. But what fun would that be? Uh, First, let's address the elephant in the room. Thank you, everybody, for the happy birthday, well wishes, and what have you. I really do appreciate it. I have to kind of be careful on my social media, and because I have friends who, let's say, they post some rather off color. That, I guess that's how you would put it. They post a few off color memes and comments and what have you, and I have to be careful with that kind of thing. So I have my Facebook set up to where nobody can comment on my page, because if I give them an opening, they will use it and just to get stick it to me. So I woke up to a ton of private messages from my friends, and I just wanted to say thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. Let's see what's going on here. Working on the T shelf project. Uh, I have other things going on in the background. We had a stretch of real good weather. It was actually in the 70s. So I had to get some outside work done. I still need to mow, but I've gotten things cleaned up, got a bunch of gravel moved and what have you. Um, this oh man, it's just a lot of work going on in the background with various other projects. So I didn't get the T shell finished. I got everything surfaced. I have two more pieces to surface down to thickness, but if you have not surfaced on a CNC router, it really comes out looking nice and pretty. I mean, uniform thickness the whole way through. There are few things sexier than freshly sanded walnut. One of those would have to be freshly finished walnut. And I mean, this is really turning out gorgeous. Who knew reclaimed flooring would look that good? It's really something to see. But hopefully I'll have that finished and the video posted next week. I can't promise, but it's looking good. I have, as I said, the two sides to plane down to the proper thickness, and, or excuse me, the two shelves. And once those are planed down to the proper thickness, I can get them cut and then go in and size the dados to fit those shelves. Obviously, I want a little bit of a tolerance so that it will go together. And yes, the wood is going to move. This panel I have here is 16 by 16 that I will be cutting the back out of. And that is going to expand and contract slightly. It's a rather small project. I'm more concerned about that expansion and contraction on the back than I am on the sides, because they're still relatively small. So I've got to be judicious in where I put glue, but it's got to be able to hold together, and it's got to be able to hang on the wall. So that's going to present a few other little challenges, because the back is only a half-inch thick, and my keyhole, I believe my keyhole bit, I need to go 7/32, which is yeah, maybe it's 11/32. I don't know off the top of my head, but I've got to be very careful. So we'll see what happens. Um, but it's all resting right now on those shelves. Once I get them planed down to thickness, I can adjust the dados in the sides if I need to, then cut that out, get everything milled up, then do my final sanding and get it assembled. We haven't decided yet. She doesn't know what kind of a finish she wants. I have a feeling we're going to go with a satin lacquer, but we may end up going with something else yet. We're not really sure, but it should be finished and the video up next week. Should be. Fingers crossed. If you have any questions at all, please go ahead and throw them in the chat. Right now, I've just got one kind of set aside. A little bit more inside baseball. Did a video conference Thursday. Yes, Thursday. I have been invited and I will be attending and presenting at the Vectric user group meeting this September in San Diego. Third time's the charm. This is the third time it's been scheduled and everything looks good. International travel restrictions have been lifted and knock on wood, it actually happens this year. So if you plan on going to the Vectric user group meeting in September, hope to meet you there and we'll just give it a good go. You know, I've been looking forward to this for 3 years now to finally put some faces to names and get to, you know, shake hands and run around, hoot and holler and just chat and BS with CNC folks and meet some of my my CNC heroes and just put everything together. So if you don't know anything about the Vectric user group meeting, now that I think about this, I'll go ahead and put a link to the user group meeting website in the description of this video as soon as we're finished live here. They're putting together several presentations. It's a Friday and Saturday in September. Let me bring up my calendar here. I don't have it on my event calendar in this computer, but I think we're looking at, I may be wrong here, but I think it's September 22nd and 23rd in San Diego, California. So here's hoping the event actually happens this year. So we'll see. Got a couple of questions staged up here. We'll go ahead and get into them. And this one I'm interested in myself, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot. And John wants to know from Michael Mazalik, will you be doing more tutorials? I don't have Aspire, but still very beneficial. Thanks. Yeah, inquiring minds want to know. Again, not meaning to put you on the spot, Michael, but to put you on the spot, here's hoping you can find the time to get back into creating some more videos because I know I learn a lot. And it's hard to take one tool presented in one video and apply it to different situations where I learned by repetition, by example, and by following along. So it takes repetition and drilling to get it implanted in my brain. So multiple projects that use maybe the same techniques, maybe a little bit different techniques, and handling specific situations, I know they're very beneficial for me. So, you know, that's just me. That's a personal plea. Yes, please, more videos. So, let's see here. Robert Hodge brings forth a good point, and I have done one video on this, but it doesn't apply to everybody. Options or suggestions for recovering if you lose electricity in the middle of a run, other than a sailor word or two. Well, you're a better person than I am if it's only a sailor word or two. Usually I invent a new language, most of it not broadcastable. But there are several ways to recover from that type of failure, that type of an issue. It also depends on what type of project you're running. If it's a 3D carve, it can be very difficult to recover. It also depends on how you initially set your X, Y, and Z0. Z0 not as much as X and Y. How you set your X and Y zero on a project is paramount and probably the most difficult. And the methods vary. I have a 3-way touch plate here that has this hole machined into it. And the way I have to do it, let me unplug it here just so I can show you. It has these bosses machined into the underside. So I just set that down on the material. Then I use a 1/4-inch end mill, drop it down inside this hole. And then I have a macro in Mach 3 that the bit will drop down. I'll use my pencil here as an example. The bit will drop down inside like so, and then it moves forward here, moves over this direction, then sets that 0, then comes back and touches back here and then up there and sets that 0. That sets my X and Y 0. Then I jog it up, move it over here, and I touch down, and that sets my Z 0. That's in the video that I used, and this is called the triple edge finder. There are various different 3-way touch plates out there. This is the most accurate way, a 3-way touch plate, of getting your registration perfect first time, every time. It's repeatable, it's accurate. Not every controller system can use this. And in fact, it's getting more and more difficult to find that macro and a good screen set to use with a 3-way touch plate. You basically have to go to the manufacturer of the touch plate and get their recommendations. I use Mach 3. It used to be a lot easier to find a screen set that would let you use a 3-way touch plate without having to invent your own macro to take advantage of that 3-way touch plate. Mach 4, I haven't gotten into that enough to know if there is a touch plate macro that will use a 3-way touch plate. I do know there's one for Z0, obviously, but that's something I'm going to need to look into to find out. For other controllers, I have no idea. I really have no clue. Now, there are other folks who will, when they mount their material on the board, they'll set their XY 0, then move to a known location and drill a hole with a 1/4-inch end mill. Then, if they should lose power, you can mount that 1/4-inch end mill in your router or spindle and then jog it over to where that hole is and get that end mill down inside that hole without without touching the sides of the hole, and then set that known location in your controller software. And then that's how you recover your X and Y 0. I do plan on doing a couple videos on that down the road, but that might not be until next year. I have so many things on my plate, it's not funny. But there are 2 people who have done videos on recovering from a loss of power or just a equipment malfunction or something like that. And that is My CNC guru, Dave Gatton, he's done one video, and Peter Pasuelo over on his channel, CNC Nuts, he's done a video. And again, I did one on my channel using my 3-way touch plate. I will go ahead and link. It'll take me a little bit to find Dave's video because he's got a lot of videos on his channel. So I'll have to wade back through and find it. But I will post links to those videos down in the description of this one as soon as we're finished live here. So I'll go ahead and link those when we're done. Let's see. Okay, just wrote a note to myself. Sorry for the dead air. Let's see. Tom Peterson says, I believe Mach 4. For Mach 4, I believe the macro was built in. It may be. I haven't gotten into Mach 4 to check it. I do plan on getting Mach 4. But I just haven't done. Let's see. Russell Faraday says save fixtures in Mach 3. Then when the power's back on, it will still have 0. I have not I've not actually done that yet. I have heard that. Now there are some let's see. There are some there are some fixtures that I have that will allow me to quick change parts back and forth, but I still have to set that initial XY0. And like I said, I do plan on doing a video for this. I just need to get to that point. So, let's see. Tom Peterson says Mach 3 should always remember your work 0 if you lose power. Not necessarily. If you shut off the controller and those motors relax, it can, doesn't mean it will, but it can kind of, it can relax a little bit and those axes move. Then you turn the controller back on, and this is especially true if the power fails, your computer shuts down, your controller shuts down, it doesn't know where it's at. It has no clue. So, and that's what I went through in my video. I was cutting something. I was in the middle of a cut and I blew the breaker in the old shop. And that was because I forgot and left the heater on, then fired up everything. And the first time a little bit of stress was applied to that router, it popped the main breaker for my whole shop because I was only running off a 115 amp circuit out there. Shut everything off, go in the house, turn the breaker back on, come back outside, and I had to reset it. So, yes, Russell, you're correct. Mach 3 asks if I want to save fixture every time I close it. It does do that. However, when you turn everything back on, it doesn't know where it is. Yes, you can go back to that fixture, but that doesn't necessarily mean, I mean, you have to rehome your machine and everything else. It doesn't necessarily mean that the controller knows where the spindle is in physical space. So, yes, it's always messy on power failures. Let's see here. We've got a few suggestions here. Larry Blair says best way for recovery is to have dowel pins for XY0 for each origin that you use to put stock on your machine. I think this is where the question is going. And you're absolutely right. That is another good example. And what I believe what you're talking about, Larry, is to have like a line of dowel pins down the, let's say, the left side in running in Y and then some running across in X, so that you place your material against those hard stops and you know that corner is X0, Y0. And that's, yes, that also does work. Then you have to position your spindle over the top of that corner. And for that, I don't have one over here. I use a El Cheapo 30-degree V-bit on an 1/8 inch with an 1/8 inch shank in my 1/8 inch collet. And I can get that point right there over that corner. Then I know everything is in place. But then again, it's still kind of arbitrary. And if you're off a half of a thousandth, let me see what that is in millimeters. That would be 0.0005. You're looking at 0.12 millimeters. If you're off that much and you were halfway through a 3D carve, that can throw off the entire carve. So, yeah, and Larry says, that's what I mean. I have several origins set like this. And that does work. But again, it depends on what you're carving, and how good your eyesight is. Now, B. Todd Cox says Mach 4 recovering from power failure is hit and miss. Yesterday, I had it completely forget the fixture offset after a power glitch and reboot. Fortunately, had the offsets written down. Yes. And that is also another, factor in that. What line were you at? I mean, if you're 9 hours into a 14-hour carve, what line of G code are you at? Where do you start? Where do you recover? It is a pain. Now, if let's see, let me close that there. If you have a complete total power failure, you can scroll through and try to estimate where you were in that G code. Most controllers will have a little preview of the G code, a preview window that shows the tool path, and you can kind of scroll through and figure out where you were. But that still may mean that you're cutting air for 10, 15, 20 minutes before you actually get back to running that code. It's a mess. It really is a mess. Now, I've seen some suggestions here. A couple of folks have said that they have their CNC setup. Okay, here it is. Earl Walker says, I have my Gatton on battery backup. How large of a battery backup? Because, I mean, I can see the computer holding on to that. But you're not running your spindle or your controllers off of that battery backup, are you? Because that's going to pull a lot of amperage. And I'm not talking about continuing to run the program. I'm talking about just, is that enough juice for you to hit emergency stop and find your location to be able to write it down, which line number you're running, and find your XY0 later on. You can, if you have something like that, maybe you can jog your machine back, hit the go to zero button on your controller and have it go back to X, Y, and Z0. Or in Mach 4, they will let you go back to XY0, then shut it down. I guess my question is a battery backup, does that have enough juice to move it back over there to let you get to a known location so you can shut down? So let's see. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, Tom. I don't think it would have enough oomph from to operate a spindle. But if you can get it to lift that spindle out of there, it doesn't matter if the spindle's turning. What matters is is it going to keep moving after that spindle stops turning? That's when you destroy materials and destroy materials, break bits, and possibly damage the machine. So, yeah, Todd Cox. The start G code from here button in Mach 4. For starting G code at some point other than line 1 should be relabeled to click this button if you want to destroy your workpiece and break your bit. Yeah. And yeah. I see you too are experienced with that. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't automatically mean that you're going to scrap the piece of material or the project as a whole. It just means that the likelihood is there. I mean, you can try it, but I don't know. For me, the 3-way touch plate, it was kind of expensive when I bought it, and a few people commented on, wow, you paid a lot of money for that chunk of aluminum. Yeah, I did pay a lot of money for that chunk of aluminum if you want to put it in those terms, but I have also saved a lot more in material because I didn't have to scrap the project and start over. So, penny wise, pound foolish, there's a reason for that saying. So, but yes, it is kind of hit and miss, Okay, let's see here. John Morar, is that how you pronounce your last name? I hope I didn't just butcher it. I would like to see more of the process from setting up saving tool paths to saving files to getting the spindle in operation. I will be focusing on that in future videos. You are not the first, and I know you will not be the last to make that comment. My problem was in the old shop, I was not in a position to do that. It was just simply because there were only so many places I could put the camera. On the videos where I'm standing in front of the machine and talking and waving and doing whatever, the camera was actually outside shooting through the doorway. It was just, I had from the front of the machine to the door, I had 4 feet, and it's just, so it was just a limitation on where I could mount the camera. Now that I'm in the new shop, that is something I am going to focus on. And that's part of what I'm doing with this T-shelf project. In the next video, wait a minute. I think I already did. I think I saved G-code in the last video. I'll double check that. But I believe in the last video I posted, which was 2 weeks ago, I actually saved the G code on a flash drive. So that's step 1. I mean, getting it from the toolpath you calculated into G code onto the flash drive, then bring it out here, plug it into this computer, transfer the file onto the computer, and then set up the material XYZ0 and start cutting. I will be focusing a lot more on that. Having said that, setting XY0 is pretty cut and dried. Setting Z0 is a little more arbitrary, and I plan on going through that as well. So watch this space, basically. That is coming up. Let's see here. Donut Hole, probably one of the better usernames I've seen on YouTube. New to CNC router, I've tried to limit the amount of fraying on my cuts, too slow, too fast, spindle speed, or feed rate, or not going deep enough, fast enough in sign making. 2 things. Yes, spindle speed and feed rate and cutting depth do have something to do with that, but more importantly is the direction of cut. And what I mean by that is, are you using an upcut end mill, a straight bit, or a downcut end mill? A down cut like this one, and I know this is going to be ding dong near impossible to see. Yeah, maybe not. If you see down here on these cutting flutes, you can see the knife edge is actually on the bottom of that flute. So that as this bit rotates, it's slicing those wood fibers downward. And that right there is the number one way of eliminating that fraying, splintering, what have you, is using a down cut end mill. Now, not all tool types are available in a down cut, but do look for them. There are some bit manufacturers who are starting to look into down cut V bits. Do you have problems with chip clearance with a down cut end mill? Because as it does slice those fibers in a downward direction, it packs those chips down into the cut that you just made. It doesn't eject the chips. So proper dust collection is important, but also clearance is important in that those chips have to have somewhere to go. And in a V-carve situation, that's not always the case. On a profile or a pocket is where the down cut end mill really shines. Now, a couple things to be careful of. A down cut end mill slices downward, so you'll have a clean top surface. But as it cuts through that bottom, it's going to slice downward and you'll get chip out on the back. On most projects, that's not really that bad of a thing, because especially in sign making, the back's going to be probably against the wall. If you're talking about something that's going to be seen from both sides, that's when it's time to look into a compression bit. And I haven't done anything on compression bits yet. But a compression bit, the flutes are arranged so that the bottom 1/8 of an inch or more up to 1/4 of an inch, depending upon the bit, is upcut. The center is kind of neutral, and then it's downcut up towards the top, so that as the bit lowers into the material, and it has to lower in below that upcut version, it'll cut all the way through as you're moving it, and it's downcut at the top. So your top surface will be cut with downcut, your bottom surface will be cut with upcut. The problem is you need a pretty stout machine, because that bit is going to have to get that upcut portion down into the material. Otherwise, it's just like cutting with an upcut bit. So there's no real advantage. So you do need a pretty stout machine to run a compression bit. But the number one thing that you can do to get rid of that fraying and splintering, that tear out, is to switch over to a downcut spiral end mill. So, excuse me. Let's see here. Let's see here. Getting back to the discussion about recovering, Todd HCNC, Mark's XYZ0 said is the best way to be able to start over with any confidence. Well, it's not necessarily my way. It's just the method that I use. More and more manufacturers are coming out with 3-way touch plates to help set X, Y, and Z 0. And the main advantage for that is the ability to recover should the worst happen. And you're absolutely right, Todd. It's being able to reset that XY0 with confidence. Let's see here. B. Todd Cox, how I learned to recover from software or power failure. practice on a small, simple practice project, cause a failure yourself, then tinker with it till you can actually recover. Well, yeah, there is that. There are inherent issues with that. You got to be careful, and I'm sure you know. I mean, you've been obviously running CNC equipment for a while. Um, it's real easy to make a mistake when trying to force a failure and cause a real failure. So yeah. So let's see, Donut Hole says he is cutting some very old barn siding. Yeah, you'll probably, again, if you're talking about a profile or a pocket, you want to start with a downcut spiral end mill. And they're not any more or less expensive than any other type of end mill. But just make sure that there is that declaration that it is a downcut end mill. So let's see here. Go back. Let's see. Jonathan Sanchez says, I have a problem that I can't figure out. Okay. Every time I plug in UC100 controller, my motors go crazy without Mach 3 on. Please don't think that I'm being flip here. I'm not. Start Mach 3 first. You know, that is something that I do 100% of the time. I know that there are some people out there who will tell you to turn on your controller, then turn on your controller software. I want that. So I want my machine under control 100% of the time. So I start up Mach 3 first, then I turn on my controller. That way it's under control and it's not going to do something like that. Now, what I would recommend in your specific case is get a hold of tech support. I believe they're CNC for PC, I believe, is the US representative for the UC100. Get a hold of their tech support folks, because there may be another issue. Technically, when you fire up the controller, it should do nothing because there shouldn't be any input to it. But if it is moving, there's something going on in the background and you need to find out what that is. I would get a hold of their tech support and ask them. It may be a specific issue with that component. It may be something else. So short of that, fire up your controller software first, then turn on the controller. That's what I do 100% of the time. So, but I would encourage you to get a hold of tech support and make sure that there's not another issue. So, suicidal at all times, long time no see. I had a question, but I forget every time I remember to come here. Welcome to my world. Welcome to my world. 61 years old, and I find myself standing in a room not knowing why the devil I just went in there. So, you know, what can you say? That's just me. Okay, let's see. Lewis Denton says, if you know the XY coordinates from your initial setup, can you manually enter those coordinates after the power failure and start over? Yes. If you know and it's not so much knowing the coordinate as it is knowing a spot on your material. I mean, even if it's just an X, that helps. It gets you in the ballpark. And again, that's why Dave and Peter will actually go over and just drill a small hole, you know, not much, 1/8 of an inch deep, with the end mill in a known location. Like you can go into your controller and you can move the CNC over, let's say, for instance, 1 inch up in Y and 1 inch over in X. So you know you have a +1 and a +1. And just drill a small hole with a 1/4 inch end mill, 1/8 inch end mill, whatever. Then when you turn everything back on, you rehome the machine, you physically move that spindle over to where that bit drops down in there without, cutting a new hole or scraping the sides or what have you. Then you're at X positive 1, Y positive 1. Then from there, you can come back and reset your Z0 and go. So yes, you certainly can. If you're using Mach 3, again, I'm not certain about Mach 4 yet, but if you're using Mach 3, you can put your spindle jog your spindle over to a physical position, and then click on that digital readout and enter a number, and it will keep that number. So it will register where it's located. So yes, that is a very real possibility. Let's see. Roger the Tinker says, if using a USB controller, should turn on at the same time as the computer. Yes. But yes, that's something that, because I don't use a USB controller, that's something that I hadn't thought about. So there really is no way of turning on but your motion controller, the UC100, would come online, but the power to the motors shouldn't be turned on until you turned it on. Does that make sense? So that's all I'm getting at, is the power to the control box. I don't turn mine on until I have Mach 3 running on my computer. That's what I was getting at. It may send power to the UC100, but it shouldn't transfer those power to the motors. So, okay. Says, yeah, cheers. I know, like this aging stuff. Yeah, getting old is not for the weak. I'm telling you. Okay. Let's see. Rick A says, Mark, a few weeks ago, you talked about using offsets for doing epoxy inlay. Yes. Okay. How do you do that when you come to where 3 colors come together? Again, that gets into, and I'm going to be demonstrating this, by the way, when I get back to the Pirate. That's what comes to the order of operations on what color you need to pour first and let cure, then the other color that you need to pour and let cure, and then that third color that you need to pour and let cure. So you have to figure out the order of operations in how you're going to get all these colors to meet in one area, and in what order you should do them. And that's something that you're going to have to figure out and decide, because maybe you have a blue and a red with a black going down the middle. Well, it's easy to, carve out the blue, pour it. Once that cured, carve out the red and pour that. Then once that's cured, come back and carve out the black, then pour that. So that just gets into order of operations. Now, if they're on complete different sides of the project from the other, and they don't meet, they don't physically touch, then that's real easy. You can carve them both and pour them both, just so long as you get the colors correct. And you're not pouring the red where the blue goes and the blue where the red goes, you're fine. But that gets into order of operations. And that will be in the next video I do on the Pirate, which I have some footage shot. I don't have it all shot yet, because I had to come off of that project and get going on another one. So let's see. Larry Blair, says, it makes great conversation and debate, but really, for how long most job takes, just start the job over if you lose power. Makes for great deburring anyways. There's a lot of wisdom in that it depends on how the carve is going, and it depends on what type of material I'm using. Some materials carve cleaner than others, like a nice hard maple or cherry or sapele or walnut. They carve real well, and I love working with them. They carve nice and clean, especially if you have nice sharp tools. And I don't have a whole, I mean, there's always going to be some cleanup work. Um, it's very rare you pull a project off of the machine that is finished ready. You're almost always going to have some cleanup to do. If it's really splintery wood, if it's really, I don't know, if it's tearing more than it's cutting, like some types of mahoganies or something like tiger wood, I will run the tool path twice, depending upon what it is. If it's a 10-hour 3D carve, I'm not doing that twice. If it's a 15 or 20-minute V carving, I'll run that tool path twice because it will go back in and it will clean out a lot of that. So I can either spend 15 minutes on the machine running the tool path a second time, or I can spend a half hour, 45 minutes getting in there with a Dremel and a rotary disc and sanding it. I'd rather just let the machine do it while I focus on something else. So, yeah, it is a source of debate. A lot of people say they don't want to, well, you're doubling the machine time. Yeah, you're doubling machine time, but you're halving the amount of sanding you got to do. Now, if you're one of those people that likes to sand, hit me up. I've got a lot of stuff for you to just have an absolute blast with. Personally, there's a lot of things I'd rather do than sand. So, I'll let the machine do the work. That's why I built it. So, let's see. Donut Hole says, if I were working on a very long, expensive run, I would easy down on the Z, make it a mark in the wood for XY0 so that it's marked on the wood surface, then touch off the Z0 point. Yes, and that's exactly what I'm talking about with that that hole that's drilled in onto a waste area on the board, so that is going to be cut away, or that's going to be left in the skeleton after you remove the part. But even then, it's going to be on how accurate you are in placing that bit too, and then tell the controller that that's where it is, so that it knows, okay, this is X plus 1, Y plus 1. So let's see here. Brooks Martin says, isn't the offsets meant to deal with the wood? Is it necessary for epoxy on epoxy borders? Yes, that's that overlap. If you have two colors that are, and I explained this in the video, the overlap video, the overlapping vectors for epoxy inlays. And I'll put a link to it in the description of this video when we're done. Just wrote myself a note to do so. You're carving out the area for epoxy, then you're carving out the next area. Where those two colors meet, they should overlap, because it removes that little V-shaped wood down there underneath the epoxy surface, so that as you sand or plane down, you don't start exposing wood. Where epoxy meets epoxy, yes, it's necessary. So, let's see. Suicidal at all times. I spent 30 hours on a brass, I think you mean brass project, set screw backed off and let the X-axis go and buggered it all up. I haven't made anything since machining wise. Yeah, I get it. I get it. there is, even just surfacing this, and I use this, it's just a cheap Freud. They call it a straight mortising bit, but you can see it's got 2 carbide inserts on it. I use that for surfacing right now. Although I am looking at another bit that I want to get. It's just the funds aren't there yet. Even just using that, there's a little bit of anxiety there. When you get everything set up and that big bit is getting ready to ramp into the material, it's just like, okay, am I fixing to tear stuff up or am I getting ready to surface? So yeah, I get it. And it wasn't that long of a tool path. I mean, it took, for the biggest piece, it was 6 minutes. But still, there's that little bit of thing in the background going, I hope I did this right. I hope I did this right. So, yes, Brooks, as long as the wood is cleared out, or that little peak where the 2 V's meet is reduced. So you've got some meat there so you can surface or sand without exposing it. So, Roger the Tinker says, you mentioned about Y and A axis homing separate. What are those settings? I don't talk about Y and A axis homing separate. I don't understand. Maybe I don't know. Let's can you clarify? You mean Y, X and Y axis? I don't understand. Or wait a minute, are you talking about Y and A axis in that the A is slave to the Y so that both are moving at the same time? That I can't speak for other controllers. That is a setting in Mach 3 on the diagnostic, not on the diagnostic, no, the main configuration page. There's a checkbox for home slave axis with master. You put a check mark in that. Yeah. Todd is saying sounds like squaring. Yeah. Okay. Yes. In Mach 3. Well, this is not. Let me get in here and make sure. I don't even know if I have Mach 3 loaded on this computer. Let me see. And if we do, I will get in and find it. No, I do not have Mach 3 loaded on this computer. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Maybe I do. Yes, I do. Okay. Get it loaded up. And forgive me, I wasn't prepped for this. Okay, this is a demo version. It is not licensed. I have it installed. I just don't have it licensed on this computer. So let's go ahead and I'll get back over here and share my screen. And screen 2. Okay, we have, there we go. We have Mach 3 up and active. And let's see, we go into config and go into general config. And let's see, where is it? B. It's over here, right here under general configuration. And because this is a demo, because I don't use this laptop to run my CNC, so I don't have the licensed version in this. But right here, it says home slave with the master axis. There should be a check mark there. That way, when you go to home, that machine, both axes will move at the same time. All right. And in the same direction. And click OK. Then immediately come back up to config and save settings. If you don't do this, the that change you just made will be for this session of Mach 3 only. Clicking on Save Settings right now writes it to the XML file and makes that a permanent thing. And that's what you want to do. So again, in the config menu, general config, come down over here into general configuration, and it's right there. Okay. So can get back over here and stop sharing, and that's okay. All right. Larry Blair saying that the A-axis meaning with the rotary. Okay. The A-axis can mean several things at once. An A-axis can be used to control the rotary axis, but a B-axis could also be used to control a rotary axis if the A is already taken up. On CNC routers like mine that have two motors moving the gantry, one on each side of the gantry, I have one motor assigned the Y-axis, and the other motor is assigned the A-axis, and it is slave to the motor for the Y-axis. So the A-axis cables, drivers, and support in Mach 3 are slave to the Y, so that both motors operate simultaneously. When a signal is sent for the Y, by slaving them, the controller moves the A as well. Now, if I add a rotary axis, I have to have a 6 or 5-axis controller because I'll need that additional driver. I'll need that additional cable to plug in the rotary axis motor. Or I can park the gantry, shut everything down, disconnect the A-axis cable, plug it into my rotary axis, fire up a different profile of Mach 3 specifically for the rotary axis, and operate it that way. So A-axis is basically an auxiliary axis. You may never, ever get a rotary axis for your machine, but if you have two motors controlling any of the axes, then that's what that A is used for. And that's what I've been running on this machine for 4 years, and then 2 years on the machine before this one. So, and it works like a champ. It works just great. So, all right, we are getting to 1 hour, and that's about the time where I like to go ahead and start wrapping things up. Let's see. So for the last comment here, Earl Walker said, I don't have a spindle at this time, just the ported cable 690 router, Xylotex controller, older computer and monitor, some LED lights connected to backup. Have plenty of time to stop everything and write down the line number on that battery backup. Sweet. And he also he has tested, got it off Amazon, APC, UPS battery backed up and surge protector, 600 VA battery backup power supply. I will look this up and check it out, Earl. I appreciate it. And you're using that with, you said, Porter Cable 690 router, which is if I'm not mistaken, a 1 3/4 horse or maybe 1.5 horse router. So that's a pretty beefy thing, but it gives you time to stop everything, write down the line number. And then thank you for that information. I'm going to write that down and go check it out and see what that's all about. I really, really appreciate it. Okay. Boy, Brooks Martin, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate the super chat. Let me say this right now. I appreciate everybody who uses these super chats and super stickers and hits those buttons. I really appreciate everybody who is hitting those download those donate links down in the description of these videos. I appreciate you guys more than you'll ever know. You're giving me the ability to do this kind of thing to where I can afford to buy the bit, talk to you about the bit, demonstrate the bit, and just buy materials for the projects that I'm doing here. So thank you very much. I truly appreciate it. You guys really are the best. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart, sincerely. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. Again, I will get all of these videos posted down in the description of this video as soon as I'm done here live, which will be in a few minutes. Give me about 10 minutes because I'm going to have to find Dave's video on resetting XY0 after a power failure and find Peter's. They both have slightly different ways of doing things, but they're both very informative, but they take a little bit of prep work before you actually start the carve. And it's not anything that's difficult to do. It's just you have to remember to do it every time you do it. And takes just a few seconds, but it's well worth the effort. So I will get those links posted in the description of this video as soon as we're done here, as I said 14 times. I hope to have this T-shell finished next week. My wife wants the T-shell finished last week. I don't blame her a bit, but we'll get it as I have time to do it. So here's hoping. Thank you very much again for all the birthday wishes. I really do appreciate them. Again, you guys are the best. So until then, y'all have a good day. Y'all go up, get in the shop, go do something. I know it's Sunday, but make some chips. You know, do something cool. Have fun. And above all, take care, y'all. Appreciate it. Have a good day.